Hello and happy Sunday. It is November 30th, 2:52 p.m. I thought I'd come on here and make this video really quick. So I'm actually working on one of my projects and I wanted to share some of the thoughts that are strolling through my mind and give you a little bit of an update. So last week it was last week. Okay, last week, I had run into some sort of issue with getting what I consider to be a fraudulent check. And because I'm a victim of gang stalking and human trafficking, I had mentioned that everything that happens with me or to my son, I have reasonable, I have a reasonable suspicion, meaning that I have dealt with so much harassment in the workplace, outside of the workplace, especially after leaving Murray Family Farms, that I have every right to suspect, some sort of bullying going on when I deal with certain transactions. So I had posted a video about, a company responding to me. I had saw a job posted on Indeed.com and I responded to it. And this particular company reached out to me and performed a job interview and then offered me a position, right? Okay, so like I said, I had talked about me being, hesitant to take it to the photocopier and print it out and, submit it into my bank account. And the reason why is because number one, this is a company that supposedly is operating in another state. Okay, so I don't like dealing with check transactions anyway because we all know that those are very iffy, especially if that check is written from a bank that's outside of your region. So this is why I'm like, okay, I can understand somebody putting a hold on the check, and this is something I communicated to the person I was speaking to who goes by the name of Karen. Okay, so I let her know that there's a possibility that there's going to be a hold on the check. This much I had communicated in at least one of my videos. Okay, so flash forward as what is in the little update is what's going on. So what happened was, I had followed up. Karen said that she was going to, on the day that I was actually supposed to start the job, Karen sent me a message asking me, what was the status of, the check, and I had let her know had already let her know that there was a hold on the check, right? Of course. And so, I had decided to reach out and make a formal call to the credit union. Now, I remember telling people that before that, Che Whitmore had sent me an email inquiring or answering my question or my concern about this particular check. Mind you, she reached out to me before I reached out to her. I later discovered that she had subscribed to my channel, so she must have been looking at my channel and saw that I was complaining about or my suspicions regarding this check, which I said after dealing with, these multiple harassment issues and me having employment issues and having, what I'm going to consider evidence of being a victim of gang stalking. Like I said, anything and everything, especially that relates to financial institutions, I have every reason to be suspicious, okay? And because I do not feel that I was taken seriously and received any accommodations by employers that I was working with that showed them or they demonstrated to me that they were taking my issues seriously and that I was receiving the proper assistance, I have to take things into my own hands by having some sort of evidence. So what I did was I took that check and sent it back to a copy of the check to the person who originally sent it to me. Her assistant's name was Tammy. I also realized by looking at their website at that time that Brian, I do not know how to pronounce his name, is the general manager of this Eagle Bend company, right? So what I did was I looked up his email address, okay, as well as so I received an alternate email address and then, changed the email address that's for Tammy at the same company and used the name Brian. Hopefully that this is going to get to them. If it gets to, if the main person that it needs to get to is the person who sent the check, which I always say Tammy, but I included Brian on the check because whose name is written on the check because he's supposed to have authorized the signing of it. Okay, so I sent that to him as well as Che Whitmore because somebody needs to be held accountable for that check. Now, when I did resend that out to them, I received a message saying that she was out of the office, Che Whitmore was out of the office, and that if I needed something, I was supposed to contact Brian Arias, right? So then this is exactly what I did. I went ahead and forwarded all this information to Eric, right? Eric Arias. Okay, so that's exactly what I did. The intuitive message that's popping to my mind is something about me smoking marijuana and that I have the support of the United States. So like I said, I understand that within this committee, okay, this committee of so-called Christian groups or people, it seems as though they want to make their own rules. Now, number one, I have been a highly exposed person because of my trafficking issue. People talk about me online all the time. And I will say a lot of it has to do with the church propaganda as well as the bullying that has taken place after leaving. So this means that anything and everything that goes on around me, I need to investigate it right away. I was not comfortable with the bank transaction. So I forwarded this information to Eric Arias, okay? So because somebody needs to be held accountable. We either have a company such as Eagle Bend who is either floating checks, right? Or somebody who is, using Brian, the person, Ryan's signature, who is the general manager. These people are falsifying checks. If this is the case, Brian needs to know that as a general manager, somebody's using his information, to commit fraud. Either way, somebody needs to be held accountable. Whether it's the bank doing it, or it could be all of these people. It could be very well be Eagle Bend, a particular company pretending who know the people at Valley Strong Credit Union. When you are a victim of human trafficking, okay, you have to understand that people are conspiring, and these groups are, what do you call it, vigilante groups, okay? So nobody can be trusted. Okay, today is, I believe, the 30th, right? Because I'm summarizing some of this information, yes, I'm summarizing it. You know why? I'm putting, this is going to be in my newsletter. You best believe it's going to be. So I was making sure I had all my information right? So I then checked the Eagle Bend website, right? And it is no longer there. So we have a scam going on. So either that check is legitimate, like I said, and they are withdrawing the funds to split among themselves and then acting as if the check is returned, or they are just wasting people's time and they are fraudulently issuing checks just to do it. Either way, the bank, the Valley Strong Credit Union, as well as Eagle Bend, have to be held accountable. The intuitive message I'm getting right now is knowledge is power, and throughout the ages, I have always won these sort of issues. And what it is a lot of this has to do with just harassment. So yes, I did let, and the reason why I've involved Aaron is, Eric is because he is a member of City Council. Okay, and the message that's I'm coming up right now is that he is a member of City Council. I have in the past, included him as well as Karen Go and other members of City Council about, Gordon's occupational engineering, what I do, and why I was created Gordon's occupational engineering. So I do believe that Eric was well aware of my targeting situation. And although he may, not agree with my religious views, he needs to understand that I have the right to believe them. Now, like I said, I was trying to, and see what I'm talking about, my intuitive messages. I know when you are a victim of human trafficking, the first thing they want to do is paint you out to be crazy. And this is one of the reasons why I believe that this may be something that the church instructs their adherents to do. Why? Because they create a covert world around that person, right? And so they always want to keep everything secret so that if they choose to use some sort of manipulative tactic, they can always make it seem as though it's your fault. But see, this is the reason why I'm holding people accountable. And I've collected other things in the past, but this particular transaction, this is something that I felt as though, okay, well then it's either Eagle Bend who's bullshitting, or it's Valley Strong Credit Union that's bullshitting, or it's a combination of the two. And like I said, when you're dealing with human trafficking, okay, it could very well be that these people all know each other. Whatever the case is, okay, we have a company that issued a check that is no longer on the web. So this is suspicious to me. Also, the very fact that I've dealt with so much suspicious activity in my community, okay, and because Eric Arias has been communicated with me, he knows, okay, I believe that this man knows who I am, and a lot of this has to do, I understand, with this whole Putin, Vladimir Putin thing, but you got to understand, I'm not comfortable with people manipulating my stuff. Okay, regardless whether Vladimir, and I've been talking about this for the longest time before I even brought up Vladimir Putin. Okay, what I'm dealing with is a lot of women who are very, very ignorant and possibly jealous. I mean, I know they're jealous, okay, but regardless of how they feel, they need to understand this is not how they deal with their problems. The intuitive message I'm getting right now is that I get and got revenge. These women are losing their jobs, their families, their friends, and they are going homeless, and many of them are committing suicide. And I know because a lot of these people have networked, with other people who are like them. And I know that there's a lot of overweight women out there. But this is a good example of how they have decided to bully up on people, how they have conspired against other people, how they have created a organized system, a systematic organized crime, that is very obvious. These people probably talk online about how they've accomplished harassing somebody, or how they tricked somebody into a job interview, or how they did these sort of things that are admissions of their bullying behaviors. And I'm sure it's everywhere. This is one of the reasons why I talked about auditing, how they must be using their computers, at work to communicate this stuff. They must be using their company issued cell phones to do this sort of stuff. They must be leaving notes in customer accounts so that when you come in, that this pops up, or some sort of reminder to deny you of certain benefits that you are supposed to be entitled to, such as I am as a citizen entitled to have a job. I am a citizen who is entitled to have a bank account without other people's permission. The intuitive message I'm getting right now is that I control my entire enterprise. So I also know that Lisa Hughes was also trying to involve my son or put pressure on my son. All of these people, Alita, Mary Landucci, all of these people, okay, you have ruined any chance of me having any sort of faith in you. You haven't demonstrated to me that you think like a criminal, and everything that you do is going to be criminal. And of course, I do not feel comfortable being around you. The intuitive message I'm getting is that I am the sole owner of my enterprise, and only I decide who comes along with me. Of course, you know what I mean? I was an employee at places like Flourishing Art. I was an employee at places like Murray Family Farms, and that's it. So after I left these people's place of employment, I have the right to have a free time, activities that I do. And the activities that I did was, of course, create a platform, YouTube, this particular YouTube channel, which I had a right to do. So then we have these people who are nothing more. They are nothing more than just previous employees or employers or whatever. They do not have any legal rights to any of my stuff at all. Okay, so this issue with this check deposit, we're going to see how this ends up happening, okay? Because I feel as though at this point, this was a paper trail. This is a paper trail, okay? So this is what I'm trying to say. I need a paper trail. You know what I mean? Things that people said, Holly Culhane, all these people that I remember being a part of what I consider to be a pertinent part of this investigation. And why do I say this? Because these are proof that this issue happened. Me having this meeting with Holly Culhane, even though it was many years ago, shows that it took place and happened. Me having discussions to Jackie and letting her know, hey, you know what? I've experienced this. Me sending her emails about me being making videos, educating people on this, and her acknowledging these sort of things. Okay. Also, me talking to these people about me suspecting harassment, yet I'm still dealing with these issues at that workplace. I understand I was being targeted at BT Trucking, okay, which I could not take anymore. Like I said, I am not the kind of person, don't get me wrong, I obviously know I'm somebody who should be making a lot of money. And I will tell you, I am not somebody who is willing to do anything for money, because what I dealt with at BT Trucking was a nightmare, and it was not worth it. It was not worth it to me at all. Okay, to have to go to work every day wearing a uniform that you don't like, having to be around, the stupid company culture that was warping into something that I could never agree with. So it's like, compatibility and understanding what kind of work culture that you truly belong in is important, okay? Otherwise, I'm just better off in a work setup where like I was, even though I didn't particularly like the owners over at Laverne and Son, at least I was by myself, okay? I did not appreciate vendors coming in or other people coming in just to sit here and stare and gawk. It's very rude. The intuitive message I'm getting right now is that I'm supposed to be expecting more blessings on the way, because people do realize that I have been abused and I was not a part. I did not ask for any of this. See, a lot of people just assume that because you work for them, or you work for them, or that you're a part of their network, they think of you as their network, but nobody consented to their network. The intuitive message I'm getting right now is that people are relentlessly harassing these women because they know that they're guilty. Okay, so there's a lot of people rolling their eyes at these women when they come along. People know some of these people in the community are guilty. They know that they are. Okay, and what's going on is that this is being investigated by higher level officials, and so people need to be careful. And this is what I'm saying. Okay, what's not going on these lower level things like the Bakersfield Police Department? These people are getting audited. These people are being watched. Okay, so this is what I'm saying. I'm getting down and I'm collecting my own evidence, and I highly doubt anybody is ever going to question me about this. But I think it was the best thing for me to do to keep that check. It was the best and the smartest thing for me to do it, because what these people are doing is, I believe that they are trying to financially exploit and abuse us, okay? Just like them trying to have control over my son's paycheck. They put me in a situation where I'm not working, okay? I'm not working, okay? And I have to work. Okay, I don't believe in me. I don't believe in me having to sit here and rely on my son and creating a hardship for him when he didn't ask to be put in this situation. My son belongs to me, meaning he was my legal son. He is my legal son, but what I'm saying is he's over the age of 18, and these people have no right to be doing the stuff that they're doing. So the intuitive message I'm getting right now is that my career is okay. When it comes to my career, people do look at me as the best and somebody who is fully capable of doing my job and more. Okay, but I was dealing with a lot of bullying in this community. And like I said, because of what just recently happened in my bank account, which I am not comfortable with. I'm not comfortable with it. So this is the reason why I involved Eric Arias, because there is fraud going on, and I believe more people are involved in it than just, these people. Okay, and like I said, this is an outright uh, admission of someone being held and accounting for these people who are participating in this sort of trafficking. It was the stupidest thing for these people to orchestrate that. Now, if I was to see, and I can't see, but if they were to audit Shay Whitmore at the bank, did she have any communications with this Karen Wolford person? I personally think there's a tie-in, and it could probably possibly be Alita. You know what I mean? Whatever the case is, Alita as well as Lisa Hughes or whatever. And I've said this so many times before, like in my last newsletter. Okay, I already said goodbye to these people. I've already explained to the community that what these people are doing is wrong, and the very fact that just recently happened, I do not forgive this community. The intuitive message I'm getting is I am correct. I own my enterprise. It's absurd for any of these people of my past to think that I would want to have anything to do with them after what they've done. You know what I mean? It's like, to me, you're a monster. And then after doing all of that, you still created this problem. You know what I mean? I deal with a lot of, illegal activity and people who fail to take any sort of accountability for what they do. I think I made it very clear, unless, of course, I ask somebody to sit here and be a part of my life or my projects, you keep the hell out of my stuff. You know what I mean? And this includes, the confusion of my work search. You know what I mean? No, I do not think it's okay for my son to sit here and pay for my stuff. And I'm very grateful that he's willing to help me out right now. But I'm not happy with this arrangement that we did not orchestrate. We did not orchestrate this, okay? This was imposed on us, and for no reason other than people feeling as though I have, and if I'm supposed to make more money, if I'm supposed to be wealthy, then that's the way it is. Then that's the way it is. I deserve to be compensated for the skills, for the talent, for my whatever I bring to whatever workplace or however I make money. If I have the ability to do so, then I have the right to do so. Okay, and it's like I feel like these people, they like to justify things in their head or make up stuff because they know that they're so criminal that they can't make it seem righteous, but they desperately try to. The message I'm getting right now is that I have revealed the human trafficking, and now the government shut down. And I understand people are talking about me because I was not taken seriously before, but people have seen what has been going on my channel for the last 10 years. 10 consecutive years from the time that I was making this channel in September of 2015. I was bewildered. I had known that I had left Murray Family Farms 2 years before that. I knew that I was slowly starting to come to understand that the kids of 533 were involved, as well as the kids I knew in high school. I had no idea how deep this was, okay? Throughout these years, I have revealed that this issue relating to Elon Musk and the Shazan Zealous thing, the trafficking rings, through the tarot card spreads and whatever in my past life research. So I would say that the Swan Song Manifesto, because of its predictions and what I have written, has gotten a lot of attention, okay? And a lot of the people who were associated with my past, of course, I'm moving away from these people. It's time for me to move on. This has been extremely traumatizing for me. When it comes to this EcoBin company, their website is no longer connected. So I'm letting people know something is very strange with this whole thing. So I don't trust any of it, but it was smart for me to make sure that I kept that check, okay? I do not advise anybody to collect a check from anyone if you are working with somebody from another, from an initial, you call it financial transaction, unless of course you know these people for a long time. Checks are very iffy and they can easily be manipulated in financial transactions, so it's better to stay away from them. And this is one of the reasons why I wasn't comfortable with my son not having his direct deposit. I do get the intuitive message that this issue, as well as the data banks, have been cleared out for me, and it's important that I know what's going on because I want nothing to do with these people. Okay, I want nothing to do with these people. These people represent extreme disgust for me. Like, I think about people like Lisa Hughes, and she's crazy. I recognize her as being mentally ill. I recognize her as being mentally ill. I would say that it should have been known that it was inappropriate. Okay, after my last newsletter post about how I was saying goodbye to the kids who I grew up with, who traumatized me, who abused me, who have left me in the state and condition that I'm in now, which is a 54-year-old person who does not have any sort of retirement, whose credit has gotten destroyed because of other people's participation and them being misled by the kids of 533, okay? I have been victimized enough by kids that do not have any reason or right to be a part of my life at this moment. Okay, these are people who are a part of my past, and I choose to leave them right there, right where they are. Okay, so anyway, I'm going to go ahead and wrap up this video, and I will be back with more information later. I am summarizing this story in my newsletter. Why? Because it's important that I call out any sort of transaction where I have hardcore evidence. Okay, why? Because I'm tired and I want to end all of it. Like, I do not want to have to deal with any more of it. I had already spoken and addressed a few videos to Eric Arias, understanding his position with the Valley Strong Credit Union, as well as his position as a member of City Council. Now, I'm not sure if he's currently on City Council or not. I believe he is. I know that I do send him updates when I have through the company website or my company email address, letting him know who I am, and I do believe he does know who I am. But the thing is that I'm putting it, because he's somebody who's a part of city council, it's his responsibility to make it stop. Okay, I'm tired of dealing with, people in these competitions, as well as this trafficking ring, which I believe, is comprised of a bunch of obese women who are very unhappy with themselves. I'm not responsible for your problems, and don't ever communicate with me again. Okay, I am absolutely disgusted at who and what you are, and your, incessant need to sit here and try to force people into lifestyles that you want. I feel as though all these obese women, the only thing that they can do is cause suffering, not just to their offspring, but to anybody and everybody who is around them, because they demand that you listen to them. They demand that you reduce yourself to what they want you to be for no apparent reason. They have no justification other than them being envious. I don't know much about Jay Whitmore. I don't know. It seems as though, based on this particular check issue, the company now website being mysteriously disappeared, it could very well be that they are all involved in it. Whatever the case is, there needs to be some sort of explanation as to what happened to the check, and this is exactly what I expect. Okay. Now, Jay Whitmore did send me an email saying that if the check gets returned, that I would not be responsible for the return fee. I don't think I should, considering the fact that I'm a victim of human trafficking, and anything and everything that goes wrong in this community, I'm going to tell you, could easily be traced back to this particular group. So this is all I'm saying, and I no longer want to have any sort of interaction with any more of these freaks. I will call them out each and every time. And it's not because I'm trying to keep the argument going. Me collecting this check and the evidence, I want it to shut down and stop. I want to get on with my life and just move on with the things that I need to do and forget about these people. Because I know a lot of people are in a lot of deep doo-doo right now, okay? And if you want to keep make it stop, let me move on with my life. The intuitive message I'm getting right now is that weed is available. Yeah, it's always been available, and it's legal too. This is my lifestyle. I'm one of these sort of people. I believe in the alternative lifestyle. I believe in my lifestyle. That's my choice, okay? If you believe in the Sabbath, if you go to a certain church, if you have certain beliefs that are specific to your religion, you have the right to believe them, and I have the right to believe mine. Okay, I will not sit here and be bullied or discussed, or people limiting my rights just because they belong to a particular church and I don't. Okay, and the sad part is there's a lot of people in this community that seem to not know the difference between religious law and what is expected as a citizen. Like I said, I'm not responsible to adhere to any of the laws relating to your religion at all. Okay, but everybody is expected to adhere to the laws here in California. So bringing back the subject of, like, for example, the Ten Commandments, right? The Ten Commandments, I said, some of the things are punishable by the heavenly council, as well as what we might have to suffer the consequences here on earth, right? Like go to jail or pay a fine or something along those lines, okay? But it's those things. Everybody has to abide by the laws that are supposed to be governed by these specific law enforcement agencies. Unfortunately, law enforcement agencies need to be revised with people who are truly able to enforce the law, which is currently, this is not the case. So there's a lot of corruption that goes on, but I think people should understand how the whole thing is supposed to flow and how it's supposed to operate. Like I said, the United States was not established based on a specific religion, okay, especially any of these Christian denominations. However, it is a nation that is has freedom of religion, which means that if you choose to, uphold certain religious things or observances. For example, some people do adhere to the Sabbath day, okay? And then some women have what they call very, strict or specific dress guidelines, okay? And then while other churches are not so strict, okay? Whatever it is that you follow in your church, you chose that. That's your choice. That's your choice to adhere to that. If you choose to be, live like a Pentecostal where you're like dressed up from head to toe and you don't even show your ankles or something, that's your choice. You choose to do that. But other people have the right to wear what they want to wear. Okay, because they didn't choose your religion. And yes, religion is a choice. And if you can't get out of a religion that is basically trying to suppress you, you may have to take legal action. So this is why I'm saying things like lawyers and people who are supposed to enforce the law, they need to stop being vigilantes. Stop sitting here thinking that they're going to, you know, be convinced to, you know, follow or get involved with their personal friends' relationships, or getting involved with, you know, personal things like, you know, their friend might, their wife, their friend might be going through a divorce, so they're taking sides, and because this is a work issue, they might be limiting the rights of a person's wife because it's a personal issue. You guys all went to high school together. Now the wife wants to go off and do whatever she needs to do, and because they were all friends, they all want to stick together, and we have these particular groups who are making plans for this particular person when really her life is in jeopardy because her husband beats her every day, but they're sitting here working things behind the scenes to keep her in an abusive situation. This is just an example, okay, of the foolishness that goes on by these so-called professionals. So this is why I'm saying, you know, it's important that people know things, the difference between the laws that are expected of everybody and the laws that people choose to live by because they chose to be a part of that religion. Now, the message I've been getting is that, you know, there are people in my community that may have been associated with, like, you know, what do you call it, the Seventh Day Adventist. I am not Seventh Day Adventist, okay? I'm not Jehovah's Witness. I'm not Mormon. I'm not any of those things, okay? All I know is that when it comes to, for example, my bank account, I signed it because I'm over the age of 18. I wanted to get things like direct deposit for if I was working. You know, I needed the convenience and flexibility of da 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 da, and that's what I agreed to, okay? It had nothing to do, there's nothing in my agreement, my clauses that say I'm not smoking marijuana. None of that says nothing. Okay, none of that says nothing. And I would never agree to something that would say, oh, you can't smoke marijuana because this is who I am and this is a part of my life. Okay, but see, some people were trying to impose their views on me. And see, one thing you will never do and expect me to take you back in is aggressively impose your views on me. Okay, and no, I don't think it's cute. No, I do not think it's understandable. No, I do not think it's relatable. Okay, I am somebody who has made it very clear that I'm very specific. Okay, I've dealt with all kinds of abuse when I was younger. I've dealt with abusive people. So anything that reminds me of the same situation that I was in with these people, I'm going to reject you. And one of the biggest things that these people wanted to do, they didn't understand my psychological makeup, how complex it is, comprised of. My psychological makeup is comprised of a lot of trauma from, okay, number one, past lives, okay, past life trauma, okay. It seems as though I've never had a real family situation. So any family that I have been placed in has been abusive for a number of reasons. In this last situation, it was because people were using me in order to get, for my father to get employment. Once they got the employment, you know, it's like just another mouth to feed, and you were opening yourself to abuse. Okay, that's very common, right? Okay, but still, that's an issue. That's a factor. I was also, the factor you have to consider is that I was, even though I didn't deserve it, I was given a bad reputation through the church system. That's another issue. Okay, and that created a lot of complications for my life unnecessarily. Okay, so I will tell you, I've dealt with things that a lot of people haven't dealt with. So when it comes to, you know, people sitting here trying to bully me and trying to act like, well, I need to change my life is not like theirs, okay? So people need to stop pretending that it could ever be. Okay, so it's ignorant when people sit here and try to, like, well, you're supposed to do this. I'm supposed to do things to coax myself. I'm supposed to do things to calm myself. I'm supposed to do things to comfort myself because you, as somebody who's never experienced what I've experienced, have no idea what I personally need. I know what I need, so kindly mind your own business. The intuitive message I'm getting right now is that there's something about the eagle bend, okay? I'm right now, I really don't know what's going on with them, okay? But all I know is it was important for me for somebody to be held accountable for that check, okay? Somebody needs to be held accountable. And because Aaron or Eric Arias, I've already addressed him, he knows that I've left places like all these employers that I've dealt with. He knows that I've communicated and talked about Karen, but he knows all of this. Okay, to act like he doesn't is just absolutely foolish. So it's in his hands, and he needs to fix it. He needs to fix and get on these people, put out some sort of notice within the church community so it spreads throughout the community. I'm tired of dealing with it. The intuitive message I'm getting right now is that people are focused on me at this very moment. And people are also, see, and I am tired of dealing with this issue. I don't like not feeling comfortable, going to my credit union. I don't like feeling comfortable knowing that I have made it very clear that I believe that I was adopted. I believe I was adopted based on my downloads, okay? And most importantly, the things that people have said throughout the years. So I have put these things together, understanding I'm adopted. So like I said, let's just say, for example, I wasn't adopted. Let's just say, for example, what happened to me leaving Murray Family Farms and dealing with all these traumatizing situations after each and every employer that spilled over to the community, and then starting to deal with the community harassment of just them, that alone, knowing that if these people really were my siblings, what kind of low life siblings would allow their brother or sister to suffer such things, something so traumatic. So either way, no matter how you slice it, I want nothing to do with the kids of 533. It's time to move on. And like I said, what becomes a problem is, and what makes people unprofessional is because a lot of people get involved with people's personal relationships. And this is something I do not respect. I hate people. I cannot stand dealing with people who think it's okay to, get involved with the personal relationship and somehow forsake their professional duty by, what do you call it? Not protecting people or following the law by allowing us to be exposed to further abuse. And this is one of the biggest issues I had when it came to working for some of these companies, because no matter what I said, no matter how afraid I was of my stalkers and the situation and how mentally disturbing it was, they were their friends. So it didn't matter if I had to work in an environment where I was scared. It didn't matter to them that I was mentally disturbed. It didn't matter to them that I was, worried for my life, because they were their friends. But see, this is what I'm talking about. This is illegal. Okay, we don't have shared friends. As a matter of fact, the fact that you're their friend means that I don't want to be your friend, and I will never be your friend. Okay, why? Because you allowed this to happen, and I said no, no. Okay, and the entire community is like, really, like, I could feel the drop in the community, but it makes sense. Okay, how in the world can you expect your homeless shelters or women battered shelters to work when you guys constantly break protocol, when you think it's okay to do the favor for a friend? Okay, you think you're doing something right, but you're doing something wrong, and this is the reason why I do not ever, respect your so-called professionalism, because you fail to be professional. The intuitive message I'm getting right now is that a lot of people are very jealous of me. Why? Because I'm telling you the truth. I'm getting down to the nitty-gritty of why, a lot of shelters do not work, as to why places like human trafficking places are failed, because they allow for vigilantes. And I'm saying vigilantes, or people who work in these kind of places, they cannot allow themselves to break protocol. They cannot allow themselves to make these sort of concessions just because so and so is their friend. And yes, people can do that. I will tell you, if I wanted to work for something like the FBI, I could do it. You know why? Because I will not tell a soul about what I get involved in. If you tell me something, I'm not going to tell anyone else. Okay, and I will tell you, there is not one person on the face of this earth that is worth me jeopardizing my security, my financial security, because I failed to keep my mouth shut and do my job. So this is my biggest issue between, why I don't respect most so-called professionals, because they're incapable of actually being professional. I'm going to wrap up this video. Take care. Bye-bye.